Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Padawan Unlimited YouTube channel dedicated to learning about and building the Star Wars Unlimited trading card community. One episode, one post, one person at a time. Today, I'm going to do a set 3 tier list, my initial thoughts on the set. Where I want to start is just giving an understanding of how I grade. There are a lot of different people out there that have their own tier lists and their own views, and there's not necessarily a standardized kind of understanding across all the content creators out there, for example, or even just you and me, like as individuals. So I want to lay the foundation of how I grade in terms for this set 3 tier list, because you might not agree with me, but at least you'll understand what my perspective is. And the first thing I want to talk about is the priority of where the leaders are in terms of which game mode that they play. So the priority is going to go constructed because that is where the competitive play is. That is, there's weekly events that happens all the time. Store Showdown is all constructed. Next, it's limited because limited is drafts, so people draft on a regular basis. So and there's usually benefits to that. When you have a win record, you might get store credit, you might get extra packs, right? And so that the leaders have a tangible impact to the game for those type of events. And then Twin Suns, right? Twin Suns is not necessarily the most popular game format, but it is really fun, and I think it's picking up some steam. And then there are also some leaders that are really just tailor-made for it, for example, and we're going to go through that later. And then finally, as a comment, it's just all within the set. So I'm not going to grade set 3 against set 1 or set 2, right? This is solely for set 3. Although some of the cards that may impact the play of these leaders come from other sets. The second thing I want to talk about and about how I grade and why I think it's important is the overall benefit of just its mechanics, especially on the flip turn. So some leaders, they come out at 4 resources, some come at 8. Is that mechanic really good and appropriate for that time, right? That time within the game. Should it be flipped earlier, later? Should you hold it till the end of the game? And then how impactful is it going to be at that moment? So, for example, very not for this set, but for set 1, Boba has a really great mechanic because on its non-flip side, every time units removed essentially from the board, you get a resource for free, and then on the flip side, it's 2 resources. So that's essentially another unit you get to play. It's very impactful, or an event. And then finally, I'm gonna talk about leader stats. That has an impact for me when I grade, not really too much, but if, for example, it flips really early and it has 4 health and can be done by a takedown, gotten rid of by takedown, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. If it's has too much high health, not enough attack power, or vice versa, that really has an impact on the leader as you play the game. So these are just the things that I consider when I grade. Again, not everyone agrees with me, and if there's other statistics or any other aspects that I think that you think I should really consider for the next iteration of the set 3, let me know. Oh, and then finally, I'll say that this is just an initial assessment. Again, I haven't played with any of the cards yet. I haven't really built decks around it. This is just my initial gut and feel, especially looking at the cards and kind of understanding what they're trying to do with set 3, and then how does it tie into set 1 and set 2. Okay, so I'm going to start off on the bottom of the list, and I think some of these are probably going to be controversial, specifically equivalent loss, but I've kind of bundled T and F, D and F tier together because I don't want to necessarily flunk a card without having been out yet. And the first card you'll see here is Quinlan Voss. And I think when I look at the community comments, I think a lot of people actually think he's probably going to be really good. I think he's kind of like a red herring. And the reason I say that is because he has a when play ability, right? You exhaust this leader, you do damage to an enemy unit that costs the same as a unit played. So yes, you're getting free damage on a unit. It's just nice. It's okay. But it requires you to do something else. And I don't necessarily like that, right? And not only does it require you to do something else, it has to cost the same as the played unit, right? So there's, again, you have to be on a specific curve. I do like that it's Force Jedi Republic, and you're going to see a theme here. Force Jedi Republic is in a lot of the Jedi and heroism leaders, or it's going to be, Force Jedi Sith, right? And that's great. Don't get me wrong, because it gives you options for upgrades and stuff. But I think this one's a kind of a red herring. And then I'm gonna flip around here. So when you play a unit, you may deal one damage to an enemy unit that costs the same or as less than the played unit. So on the flip side, okay, it can be less. I think that I think that's just a little weak in my opinion. Maybe you're going to remove a card at the end of a unit at the end of it the turn. I don't know. I think it's pretty weak. Nala say it is also in the D tier, D or F tier. Not that I think it's necessarily super weak as an ability. I just don't think it's very useful. Especially, okay, so let me take a step back. First of all, she only has one word, one keyword here, or one tag. It's Kaminoan, right? It's not, there's no official or anything like that. So it's already kind of weak in that sense. Now let's say, ignore the aspect penalty on clone units you play. Okay, so you get access to heroism cards. Not bad. You do deploy on four, which is pretty early, but Omega, for example, allows you to play clones, without ignoring the aspect penalty. So I guess it's nice that it's built in. To me, this is kind of like Hera with Spectre units. Of course, there are more units available, and you get to get the other side of the aspects instead of villain. You get heroism, but I don't know. Again, I think it's still a little too weak. She flips it with 1/7, can't be tipped down, which is good, but at 4, but you're only doing 1 damage in return. Maybe you buff her up. I mean, every clone unit gains when defeated, heal 2 damage from your base. I just don't think that's enough, especially against an aggro deck. I just think that you might get a little juice, like a brief restore, but again, you're losing units, and a lot of clone units benefit from coordinate, which you won't have because they're being defeated. I think it's cool. I think what Nalase is trying to do is good, but I just don't think it's going to be effective in most levels of play. And then I actually bundle General Grievous and Ahsoka Tano together in the DNF tier. Not necessarily because I think they're bad leaders, but if we look historically, to at least set two, right? Because set one is different, in that it had to be a strong initial set that people get interested. But for set two, if we look at Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian, they didn't really see much play overall. They were kind of weak, and I think just like those cards, just like those leaders, these are just there to kind of show initial mechanics of what the set's supposed to do. Ahsoka Tano, all right, you get a coordinate, gets +2, so 5/6 on the flip term of 5. Okay, but that's it. And Grievous, give a droid unit Sentinel for this phase. Okay, and +1 attack. Fine. Flips on 6 with 4/8. It's kind of powerful, I guess. But I think these are just two basic cards. It's not really gonna be too impactful to the game in any format. If we go on to the next tier, so my C tier, there's two kind of sides here. This is probably where the bulk of the cards are going to be. So these are kind of like average cards that are probably going to get you some wins. Probably not going to be tournament winners, but they're playable. First one is Jango Fett. When a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, you may exhaust this leader if you do exhaust the enemy unit. I think that's really good. You get a free exhaust. I mean, I can't complain about that. And then if I move over, so when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, you may exhaust that unit. Great. Underworld Bounty Hunter goes great with set two. But again, all you're doing is exhausting a unit. You save some tempo, but uh, is it necessarily super game changing? Maybe in very specific scenarios. We'll see. If I go Captain Rex, you pay 2 cost. And then if a friendly unit attack this phase, create a clone trooper token. Okay, so you're playing a clone trooper for 2 if you can get an attack off. Flips at 5. Great, that's Republic clone and trooper. That's good. Create a clone trooper token when deployed. So great, you're halfway to or 2/3 of the way to coordinate if you want to use that. Each other friendly trooper gets no +1 attack but +1 health. Okay, a little bit more survivability. Okay. No offensive power. Okay, I think it's more like mid-rangey, I guess. But it'll have some probably fun uses. I think Captain Rex will have some fun uses. But again, I think it's just an average leader. Mace Windu, uh, it has an ability here that says, action one cost, deal one damage to a damaged enemy unit. Then if it has five or more damage on it, deal one damage to it. So this is kind of a closer mechanic. You pay one cost to potentially do two damage to a high health unit to kill it. Okay. And then only when you deploy, deal two damage to each damaged enemy unit. So if they're using grit, for example, it's not bad because you can close out a lot of things. So two damage to each damaged enemy unit is good. Mace Windu is coming out at seven resources. Games could be done by then. Again, Force Jedi Republic, really great tags there. Um, I just, this requires some other mechanics to happen, just like Bo-Katan Kryze in set two, where it required a Mandalorian attack. This one requires damage that's already been done and at five. So again, it's not going to have a lot of units are going to be at that point unless they're using exploit. Very situational. Okay, kind of meh to me. Maul, so I think Maul is sneaky. I think Maul might actually go up a tier because of Overwhelm. There's a roll mechanic because and it doesn't cost anything. You get to attack a unit and you give it Overwhelm for a turn, which is great. It's we're thinking about aggro, you can just attack and you get a free keyword essentially. That's great. And then when you flip it on six, which is still really early, right? Not only does Maul have Overwhelm, 6/6, so it could probably kill most leaders out there, if not most units at the six resource turn. But then each other friendly unit gains Overwhelm. So you're probably going to kill a damaged unit, get Overwhelm. Um, Okay, good. I think there's a lot of swing plays here, and maybe this might go to kind of up a tier, but for now I'm keeping it in the C tier because overarm only works when it's offensive, right? So if you're defensive in that sense and someone's trying to kill you or trying to just to defeat your units, right? Overarm is useless essentially. So again, it's a one-sided tool. C tier for sure. So if I think about C tier continued, uh, the next one here is Pre-Vizsla. Okay, you're paying a resource to deal damage to a unit equal to the number of cards you've drawn this phase. All right, so you need a strong draw mechanic, not a discard mechanic or anything like that. Like so for pillage, right, force for example, you need a draw mechanic. Um, so that could be, I don't know. How much damage you can do. We'd have to see. If you have three or more cards in your hand, this game's Saboteur at the flip turn at five. You probably have three cards if you're not playing you know, too low to the ground. And then this has Saboteur. Okay, not bad. If you have six cards in your hand, this unit gets plus two, so it's 6/6. All right, so if you delay the game, that's okay. I guess it's good against control because it becomes a 6/6 with Saboteur. So you can punch through Sentinels and like Obi-Wan at the flip turn, for example. Not bad. I just again, Mandalorian Trooper, not necessarily in line with this set, but maybe it really powers up set two. Okay. Wat Tambor. So forget I like actions that don't cost anything. So this one's a good one for me. If a friendly unit was defeated this phase, thinking about Adult tokens, give a unit +2/+2 for this phase. Good trade-off, right? If you lose if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, which you probably will be because of exploit, for example, and it's a battle droid, and it's mine 1/1, but then you give something else 2/2, you just really powered something up. I think that's not a bad trade-off. So you can you could do something massive there. Then on the flip at five, on attack, if a friendly unit was defeated for this phase, give another +2/+2 for this phase. Okay, so now instead of using an action, it's just on attack. So you're not using tempo doing that. Okay, not bad. Again, is it super, super game changing? No, I think there's just very strong situations in which this card will be really good. It's only separatist official. Not, it doesn't give you too many other cards that use those keywords or those tags. So yeah, kind of average. Chancellor Palpatine. This one was tough to tier, because there's not necessarily like a flip turn, right? Right. It just kind of happens. It starts with heroism, then it becomes villainy, or after something happens. So, which is if a friendly heroism unit was defeated this phase, draw a card. It's not bad. Heal 2 damage from your base, pretty good. And then flip this leader, and then becomes the bad side, or the dark side. And then if it happens again, so if you played a villainy card this phase, create a clone trooper, deal 2 damage to each enemy base. Again, Twin Suns. Then flip this leader. I think that this card is definitely more Twin Suns oriented because of that one quick mechanic where each enemy base to flip this leader. I think it's really good because it gives you access to both heroism and villainy, but I don't think it's going to see much constructed play, because there's just too many variables you have to consider when going into that, when playing this leader, right? Are you really gonna have a deck that's kind of half villainy, half heroism? And then how's the statistics going to work when you're trying to get a specific card out to make sure you can play it, but you need something else to happen first, like a unit to be defeated. I don't know. This is a lot of complications. I actually might down tier this tier to the D-ish tier in the future, but for now I'm cautiously optimistic that it's going to be C tier. It's going to see a lot of play and potentially Twin Suns, limited, probably not much constructed. Okay, moving on up, we're going to B tier, and this is probably also going to be a little controversial in this assessment. So I have 3 units here: Padme Amidala, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin Skywalker. Now, I didn't tier them in B tier because they're all, like a triad of friends and mentors and stuff that have like really been together and done a lot of things. I honestly think that these are good cards. So Padme Amidala, I'm not going to go through all of what she does, but what she has is essentially a built-in Ewing reinforcement, kind of, or a built-in Mon Mothma, right? You get to just search for card. You get for the top 3 cards. So if there's high quality cards in your deck and you flood it with Republic cards, you can start pulling them for 1 cost, right? Which means that you're getting good cards earlier, or when you actually need it, and then you can put all the other cards that you don't need until later at the bottom of your deck, right? Of course you're showing it to the opponent, but I think this in itself is really powerful because you can really chart your path. And this comes out of 5, 2, 7, Naboo. Ugh, I don't know if that's good, but Republic Official, great, right? I think this card is gonna be really good for green heroism. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I don't think his initial action is necessarily too good. I mean, you get to heal damage from a unit, which is, help in terms of survivability. That's great. Deploys on 6. What I like about Obi-Wan Kenobi as a leader and why I put him in the B tier is because yes, you get some healing, and you're gonna get healing the entire time, like per units the entire time. So, anti-Emperor Palpatine, for example, if they try to damage your unit, you could heal it and he can't take it anymore. That's fantastic. Um, if you deal damage and then it's on attack on the flip is not only do you heal 1 damage from unit, if you do deal one damage to a different unit. So it's there's a swing of 2 health there on the board. But also he acts like set 1 Obi-Wan Kenobi where he is a sentinel, right? He doesn't give you the 2 experience or the draw the card ability, but you get a free sentinel at 6, and it's 1 health more powerful than Obi-Wan from set 1. So feasibly, if you think about the combination, Obi-Wan Kenobi from set 1 is probably one of the best cards of that tier of that set, of 6 resources. You're gonna have 2 Obi-Wan Kenobis, 2 Sentinels. It's really hard. You can't just take them down, right? And if they're probably gonna go, if they go after the old version, you're only gonna power up your Obi-Wan Kenobi here. I think, and if you decide not to do that, right, and you have other options, you do Obi-Wan Kenobi, then Obi-Wan Kenobi 6/6. You have a 6 Sentinel on 2 turns, And I think that's gonna be really, really hurtful, like really painful for opponent that's trying to close out the game. And then finally, Anakin Skywalker, double-edged sword. We'll see how this goes. I think he has a lot of play. I'm actually might bring him down to C tier in the future, depending on how things shake out. But Anakin Skywalker has an action, no resources, great, but you do two damage to your base. And if you're facing cards like, units like Sabine, leaders like Sabine, this might be really bad. But you're essentially going to be able to kill any, defeat any unit on the board with whatever you're attacking with because you get a +2. So if you think about the trade-off, right? Instead of having a unit do 3 damage to your base, you do 2 damage to kill it. That could be okay. If you flip it, this Anakin Skywalker gets more powerful with more damage on the base. If you're thinking of you might like have a 20 damage by on your base by 6 resources, which is very feasible. He then becomes an 8/7 with Overwhelm. That's like a more powerful wrecker, but with Force, Jedi, and Republic. So if you throw if you throw like a lightsaber on him or something like that, that's really that's a huge swing on the board. And he's a leader, so you can't necessarily like take him out unless you're using Ravel's Fall, I guess. Again, I think these three cards in their own right are really, really good. But we'll see, how as the set matures, how it how they play out. Okay, we're going to the next tier, A, and then before S, you could probably determine what that might be. But we'll do tier A first. Okay, some of these I think are definitely going to be controversial. I think it's Asajj Ventress, Newt Gunray, and Count Dooku. So it's interesting because, my B tier had nothing but heroism. The A tier here has nothing but villainy. Just real quickly, why I think this is the case. Asajj Ventress comes out at 4 resources. So that is like Sabine Wren with but for cunning. And cunning already can have a high tempo, but they also have access to things like waylay, which removes cards from the other side of the board. Has an action, doesn't cost anything, which I think is fantastic for Separatist Sith. Pretty good. Attack with unit. If you played an event, which you probably did, right? You're going to be, like if you think like I said earlier, like waylays, for example, or something anything like that. You get +1 for this attack. So you're not necessarily wasting the turn completely because you're not putting a unit on the board when you play an event. You're getting some type of benefit. And then on attack, it's the same thing, but you know, the unit gets to deal damage before the defender. That is huge. It's like having Han Solo, uh, at 4 resources, and you're just killing things off the board. You're killing all the small units off the board. You're going to definitely have control here because not only are you getting +1 to be able to do damage and do a little bit of reach at that point, uh, o- you are going to do damage before the defender, so you don't get hit back. I think that's a very powerful mechanic. You don't need to even worry about exhausting or anything like that or playing no good to be dead because you're going to kill it. You're going to defeat the unit before it can even do anything. And I think that's really, really good. Newt Gunray. Uh, the thing about Newt Gunray, I think, is that he's constantly generating something. You're never going to be at a loss of units, truly, because you're always going to be able to bring something back. So, for example, his action doesn't cost anything, which is, again, fantastic. If it cost 1 resource to do, I think this would be very, very bad. But because it doesn't cost anything, if you two or more friendly units were defeated, create a battle droid token. So every time you exploit, you get 1 unit back. That's that's good. You're getting a 50% refund, essentially. And then on the flip, right, you exploit and then you flip and then he attacks. You get to exploit again because you have 2 units on the board, right? I just think that at this 6, 7, 8 kind of turn, if you're playing on curve and you have exploit units that you can use exploit that are on your hand and ready, um, the game's turning in your favor immediately, especially if Newt Gunray can just keep attacking. right? That's going to be huge. And then finally for A tier, Count Dooku, because again, action doesn't cost anything, but you get to play a separatist card, exploit one. So that means that you can defeat a unit from you control and it costs two less, right? Um, which means that you know, you're playing uh, a unit from two resources up, two resources more expensive, cheaper in exchange for what? A battle droid. So it's kind of like Han 2, but without the penalty in terms of damage. And then on the flip, at 7, a little late, but you get overwhelm. And on attack, you get, the separatist card you play gains exploit 3. So 3 units that's to reduce something for 6 resources total. At 7 resources, you're going to be able to play a 12 resource card potentially. Oh, I mean, that's a game closing if that if anything. And I think that's just again really really powerful. Exploit as mechanic is really good and going to cause a lot of swings on the game. And then finally, again, this is my shot in the dark, based on just my own initial assessment, but S tier, I think for set 3 is going to be Master Yoda. He's a 4 Shadow Republic, comes out at 7, has 2 restore, which is great. Has his ability is again an action, no resource. If a unit left play this phase, left, not defeated, just left, could be a bunch of different things, right? Draw a card. Then put a card from your hand on the top or bottom of your deck. So I think this is why I like this card, is because you can churn through your hand to get cards that you need, and then you're not losing it. You're not losing the card. You're being able to put it back into your deck. So the quality of the remainder of your deck only gets stronger because you're playing the cards that you need now and saving the cards you don't need for later. And then when you think about it, when you deploy it, you may discard a card from your deck. Discard a card, any card. Just discard a card. If you do, defeat an enemy non-leader unit that costs the same or less than the discarded card. So for 7 turns, potentially, or however long you've been playing the game, let's say you had an 8 cost card in your hand, or 10 cost card in your hand, and you needed to put it away, or Endless Legions, whatever, like 14. And you had it in your hand early and you needed to get rid of it, so you put it at the bottom of your deck. You get a free removal for a non-leader unit, regardless of what size is it. You just discard a card from your deck, and you get to defeat it for the cost, as long as the cost of the card that you discard is the same or less as the discarded card. Free removal, and that's amazing, right? You have all these tags. You get four, not four. It's a 4/9, comes at 7, restore 2, and an ability that is useful for the entire game. Oh, well, as long as a unit left play this phase. But more often than not, a unit's going to leave leave play pretty much every turn. And that's it. This is this is the last leader that I wanted to evaluate. Let me know what you think, if you agree, if you disagree, if you think that some cards should be changed. Let me know in the comments. And until next time, may the force be with you.